Autism is like living an exaggerated existence. That phrase comes from a comment left on a recent video of mine. It obviously wasn't meant to sum up the entirety of the autistic experience or speak for all autistic folks. It's just describing the way the poster sees a particular aspect of their autistic life. But nonetheless, it sparked an interesting debate about how good a description that phrase actually might be. I almost joined in myself when I thought, hang on, aren't I supposed to be an autistic storyteller? Describing autism is my thing. So perhaps I should give this question the full-on autismatic treatment. I'm Quinn, and I'm autistic. Welcome to Autismatic. This wasn't the first time I've heard the sensory and emotional overwhelm of autistic life described as an exaggerated or amplified take on things. I've even said it myself from time to time. It's not exactly representative of autistic existence, but it's a good shorthand to help non-autistic people understand certain parts of our world. Regular viewers know that I'm a verbal thinker. I'm autistically methodical and logical, but my frame of reference isn't visual, mathematical, social, melodic, or any of the other allegorical sorting mechanisms autists use to make sense of our world. My way of putting things in order rests in the precise deployment of words. Autists like me, who describe a vivid world in florid terms with flourishes of incisive descriptive detail and flashes of oblique metaphor, are perhaps the most literal of all. I also only speak English, which is a distinct barrier from time to time, but it also means that I've dedicated all my linguistic attention to learning the subtleties and idiosyncrasies of the one language I do speak. I'm very lucky that so many of my overseas viewers do speak more than one language, or I'd lose a big portion of my audience. Luckily, I was quite young when I started to learn how easily the same information can be differently interpreted from alternative points of view, let alone across language barriers. That quote about there being lies, damn lies, and statistics has a sound basis in truth. Facts may be cold and emotionless, but the way they are deployed is anything but. Modern communication is as much about skillful omission, concealment and deniability as much as it is about publicity or sharing of information. When I look at a word or phrase, I'm not only interested in its meaning, but how it can be misused, misinterpreted, or used to harm. I'm looking for all that information hidden between the lines that so often comes back to bite us. Do I think exaggerated is a bad way to describe us? No, it's actually a pretty good way to get the conversation started with a receptive listener. It conveys a vital and salient point. As an autist, my sensory and emotional responses appear on occasion to be exaggerated when compared to the descriptions of non-autistic people. Plus, when I've described my own circumstances in honest, heartfelt detail, I've often been accused of exaggerating, so it's a pretty fair comment from my point of view. Even those people who are new to autism but are starting to get it say things like, "So, what you're saying is that you experience everything like I do, but bits of it are kind of exaggerated, is that it?" At which point I nod furiously and try to build on that foundation. It's just the start of the journey, though. Next, we'll have the equally difficult job of introducing nuance to that revelation, and that takes time. Now, I'll stress that everything I'm saying here is an opinion and nothing more. I wrestle with questions like this every day when I'm writing and editing the scripts for this channel or corresponding with vulnerable, sensitive people. I don't just have to think about what I'm saying out loud or on the page. I have to think about what people hear in their hearts and minds when I say it. You know, that cognitive empathy thing people like me can't do? I genuinely can't control people's perceptions, but what I can do is choose my words carefully, so I have to think carefully about how my words can be misunderstood as well as my intended meaning. I don't get it right for everyone, as you'll see in my comments, but I must admit it makes me beam with joy when I see someone else gently explaining the misunderstanding so I don't have to. I'd like to explain a little of how my mind works when it comes to processing of words and language. If you're autistic, it might feel a bit familiar because you'll have a totally different but functionally similar system of your own, equally as unique as yourself and attuned to your strengths and vulnerabilities. The function of language is sharing of information, and each of us has a different way of translating that information into feelings and actions. We all need to find a way of making the world we see and hear work for us, and I do it with words. To me, words have a kind of texture or shape, a personality which I relate to on an emotional and sensory level. Words have qualities way beyond their dictionary definitions, and how we combine them can change worlds, let alone minds. Even when we strip away nonverbal communication, take away tone of voice, facial expression, body language, everything, a word's meaning can still be entirely changed by its context, or even the personality or mood of the receiver. If I say that certain of my senses and my responses can seem exaggerated compared to my peers, there would be no comeback from my wife, my friends, or other autists. But all of them are on my side already, if you catch my drift. They're all converts, if you like, to the idea that autistic can just mean different rather than lesser. I've no position to defend, no scores to settle, no doubts to address, or even preconceived ideas to overcome. Some of the people I meet, and certainly some of the viewers who comment on this channel, are not so well disposed. And their view of a phrase like autism is exaggerated existence could be worryingly different. In my bonds, a word has a whole set of properties that not everyone sees. Like the classic synesthete who sees colours in music or tastes the sensation of silk, I get a feeling about words I find, ironically, difficult to describe. I'll have a go though. I'll put a word on screen just up there in just a moment, and I want you to think about how it makes you feel. Probably most of you will feel nothing at all, but that's just as relevant. Now, look at that word and think about its meaning in dictionary terms. It's a simple, objective description of the material properties of a solid object. If something is rigid, then it is stiff and unmoving, firm and unyielding. Now, think about the last time you used that word in conversation, what you describe with it, what other situations you might use it in, and how. Is it an imperative word? A word with urgency and strength to move us forward? A receptive word that invites elaboration or engagement? Or is it controversial, in need of confirmation or contradiction? Is it a friendly word? Is it likeable? Does it have a colour? How does it feel to the touch? I imagine you'll have little difficulty seeing it as a hard word, and quite a few people can relate to it being a grey or even a blue word. It's a loud noise like a foghorn or the strong, tannic taste of overbrewed tea. I've analogized that word and many others so many times that I know if I keep going, I'll eventually say something which makes you think, yes, that's it. I'll say something which to your mind has nothing to do with that word, rigid, but somehow it describes the feelings or images it evokes for you. Now, answer me one last question about our random word of the day right here. How would you feel if someone described you as rigid? Experience has taught me that when I pay attention to my feelings about the character and balance of words as I see them, I can conduct their individual personalities and voices to sing in glorious chorus. And when I do that, people usually understand my meaning. If I don't take the time to get it right, I usually end up in trouble. So, what does my verbal spidey sense say about exaggerated in this context? The dictionary definition is pretty good. Something exaggerated gives the impression of being greater than either a similar something or a previous iteration of itself. That's a pretty good description of the autistic experience of emotional and sensory overburdening. Not overload, that's when it gets too much. We're constantly overburdened with information our neurotypical peers aren't aware of because our senses deliver too much information to our conscious minds. So it feels like what goes on in our heads is similar to everyone else, just a bit more. It's an efficient, descriptive word in that context. We can't say it for certain because it's a subjective experience, so exaggerated ticks a lot of descriptive boxes. It's not an unemotional word, though. And I personally feel that, on balance, it evokes emotions I don't find helpful when I'm trying to explain myself. To exaggerate is also to be disingenuous, to distort the truth, to be dishonest. To exaggerate is to make something appear more than it actually is. So it's a deception. When I say to someone who has no prejudgments or to someone who is already well disposed towards me, they'll likely get my true meaning when I say my autistic life is kind of like an exaggerated version of theirs. But what if they're not? What if they're already prejudiced? Say they already have a negative impression of autistic people, or they can only see autism in terms of deficit and poor quality of life. Or maybe they've no pre-existing ideas, but they're just in a bad mood today, or in a hurry, or don't like men with beards. How might they interpret me when I describe myself as an exaggerated version of them? How do they like the idea of my life being turned up to 11 when they're stuck on 10 by accident of birth? How do they feel about the possibility I might know something that they don't, or something about them that they don't want me to know? I know what I mean when I say my life experience is somehow exaggerated. You know what I mean. But what it means to someone with an existing bias, who's having a bad day or simply doesn't like the sound of my voice, might be a whole different kettle of fish. Do they hear me making a considered and relatable argument about spiky skill sets or balances of benefit and deficit? Or do they hear me saying I'm better than them? Or that I have special exaggerated powers over them? Maybe they think that saying my life is exaggerated is confessing to dishonesty, my inability to tell things as it is without embellishment. Or maybe it's just a common or garden insult. I'm special and you're not. Or even a play for sympathy. If the word exaggerate has a texture, it's jelly-like, wobbly and amorphous like its meaning. If it has a colour, it's not the drab grey or steely blue of rigid, it's bilious yellow, a signal to be cautious when using it. It tastes of dry toast without butter, a functional word lacking context and flavour. But above all, it's a wonderfully versatile word that can mean what we want it to, but I don't feel I can trust it to reliably describe my experience of being autistic to people I don't yet know. When I talk to another autist about my ever-present need to be on my toes, anticipating the next 5 misunderstandings and trying to get in first to prevent them, they get my meaning. When I describe the same to someone who isn't autistic, they think me anything from mildly eccentric to wildly paranoid. Choosing our words carefully is only one tool in an extensive kit of skills we can use to map out the careful path we must tread through life. But it's the one I instinctively prioritise. There's lots of language I'd use to describe my experience of life, our experience when it crosses over with others like me. But exaggerated is one I'd feel best using amongst people I feel comfortable with already. People who won't try to turn my words against me or willfully misinterpret me. I think that, taken in isolation, the statement that autism is an exaggerated form of existence is a fair observation to make. And to the curious and open-minded, it's a friendly invitation to learn more. I'm not sure it's an observation that would always be taken the way I intend it, though. These days, I'm more likely to phrase things in terms of sensitivities and sensory processing, putting the emphasis more on the passive receptive processes of mind rather than the active behavioural direction that Exaggerated brings to mind. It's not my problem if a random someone misunderstands me, even less if they do so intentionally, but it is my problem if they happen to have the power to make my life more difficult. And that's a lot of people. I'm Quinn, and I'm autistic. Thank you for watching. If you've already liked and subscribed and would like to support the channel more, then please follow the Patreon links in the description to pledge what you feel is fair and affordable to help keep the lights on here and the content keep flowing.